Welcome back to New Money. This evening, we're discussing retirement and financial planning. My guest is Jordan Toy. If you'd like to email me, my detail will appear on the screen. I'd just like to let viewers know, if you've come in late, we've been talking a little bit about the two-pot system. We've been talking about early retirement. We've talked about what the ingredients are for having a retirement plan. And Jordan's just been talking about the importance of budgeting and paying yourself first and understanding it. Just to let our viewers know, this program is repeated nearly 1 or 2 times a day during the week, every day, and the program tonight will be repeated during the week. I'd just like to add one thing. You know, there's a tendency of people to replace their car when they've finished paying it off.
Yep.
Someone offers them a good deal on their car, they want a slightly bigger car, big mistake. You know, cars last a lot longer than 5 years today.
Exactly.
And depending on how much you drive as well. And people tend to do this, and they just get into this debt trap. If you've paid off your car, fantastic. You've now got surplus funds, and I think you'll agree, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have to replace the car.
Agreed, and I think everyone's heard that old tired argument of we know it's a depreciating asset. So it's not like you're accumulating value in a property or in an investment portfolio. We know from when you drive that car off the dealership floor, it's losing value. I think I try and be circumspect in the sense of it's a balance, right? It's a balance of making the right financial choices for the long term and the medium term, but also the ability to enjoy one's life. I think often we tend to veer too much towards enjoying our lives now, and you borrow from your future self to enjoy it now. So 100% agree. You know, you take care of a car, it can last you a lot longer than 5 years, and simply because you've now ended the vehicle repayment terms doesn't mean you need to immediately leap into the next upgrade. I agree with you 100% on that.
And Jordan, as a young man, a lot of the clients you talk to, are they having conversations, the spouses, or husbands and wives having conversations about money?
It's always a difficult one, right? And I mean, I think anybody in a relationship can attest to the fact that money can create a lot of difficulty in the relationship. But I think leaving that conversation and neglecting it over the long term, you know, it can damage the health of a relationship. So I think it's a difficult conversation to have, but a very necessary one, and one that, you know, I'm often sitting with clients and having those kind of discussions, and to just open the door to, you know, what are your financial goals versus your partner's? You know, how do you see managing the family's finances? You know, the longer you spend together, whether you're married or not, you know, typically your finances become more and more overlapped, and it's important to have those discussions so that you're setting out the sort of the game plan for how everything looks going forward, and that you're not drifting in 2 different directions. You both agree on, or there is an understanding of the differences in financial goals. And, you know, we look at factors like your marital regime if you're married. How does that impact the combined financial picture? How do you handle debt? Do you have a bond? All of these things, just having that discussion often, I think, puts a lot less pressure on the relationship. And it's important for the long-term success of whether you're individuals or collectively. You know, it's going to have a big impact, and planning that from the get-go. We can talk about planning our individual finances as much as we can, but it has to be the family as well. You know, there's multiple individuals in there and multiple financial goals.
You know, Jordan, it's amazing. At my stage in life, I'm seeing a lot of death, a lot of either the husband or wife dying. And let me share this with you. In so many cases, the spouse, particularly the widow, the female, is not aware of the financial situation. And, you know, you'll go and visit a family, and I'll tap the wife on the shoulder and say, "You're okay."
Yep.
And then some weeks later, when I met with them, they say of all the things people have said to them whilst they were in this mourning stage, not that mourning doesn't continue,
yes,
but everyone means well.
Yep.
They said my comments to them that you're okay meant more to them than anything else, because, you know, there are 2 emotions on death. The first is grief,
yep,
and then guilt, because at a time of losing a partner, you're actually thinking of money. Am I okay? Who's going to pay the bond? Who's going to pay for education? How am I going to live? And there's not enough discussion. Maybe that's old school, but there's not enough discussion between spouses. But let's get to some of my email. Philip in email says, I have a policy with a large cash value, and I'm advised to take the cash and replace it with a straight life policy. I'm interested in our views.
So obviously we don't have a lot of detail around Philip's, his age.
But there are a lot of the old policies, the old generation type policies, where you were paying premiums which not only gave you life cover, but built up cash values.
So the one critical point I think that I want to communicate on this is to say, before you cancel any life policy, because that is not like a light switch that you can just switch back on, if you change your mind down the line, is to have a good idea of the quotes available to you if you are looking at a straight life policy, and to potentially try and get all the way through to a final offer. So that means getting through medical underwriting and having an understanding of the terms that are going to be offered to you. Because, for example, the policy that Philip talks about initially might have been taken out quite some time ago, and your health has changed from when you.
And I think it's important. Money does not buy insurance.
No,
it's your health that buys it.
Exactly.
Okay. So coming back to that, so he said, Philip says I've got a nice surrender value in my policy, and I've been told to take out a new policy. There's a whole lot of premium patterns that he needs to look at and take out the cash.
Yeah, so that just going back to my initial point, I think that's the first step for me, is get an idea of what the final offer in front of you is because once that existing policy is no longer in force, like I said, it's not so easy to go back. So have a good idea of what your options are available to you. That's step one. Then from there, start looking at in those options, okay, what kind of premium pattern are you going for? Depending on Philip's stage of life, an age-rated or level premium is going to have a big impact on what he's paying month to month. So, but that's, I think for me, the most important point is don't rush to now make changes. Go through the process, go through medical underwriting, and then say, these are the offers I have in front of me, and make an informed decision from there.
Philip, I don't know your age, but let me make this one comment. There are a lot of policies that have what we call review dates. And as you get older, those review dates are astronomical. And so you need to understand, what is your premium going to be going forward? How does that compare to the review date of your existing policy? And as Jordan says, please do not cancel any policy until you've been accepted. Barbara in Durban says, can I appoint anyone as a beneficiary to my life and investment policies? Can this be contested in the same way as a will can be contested? So that's more of a legal type question.
Yes, but on the life policy, relatively straightforward in terms of the ability to appoint who you'd like on your policy. The investment side, it's a little bit more varied. So for most standard investments that don't fall under the Pension Funds Act, so they're not retirement investments, generally, a lot of them don't have the ability to nominate any beneficiaries. The retirement accounts, you do often have the ability to nominate a beneficiary, but I think it's important to bear in mind, and they mention, can it be contested like a will? It's similar in the sense of the trustees of the retirement fund that you're a member of can have a say on how the benefits are paid out. So, you've listed 3 beneficiaries. They more view that as this is your stated wishes. But it comes around to an assessment of dependency. If after you've passed away, someone else can prove to those trustees that they were financially dependent on you, they may vary your stated request of these beneficiaries. They may include other individuals. So it's just to keep an eye on that, to know that that's not for certain, and it can vary from what you've stated or listed as your chosen beneficiary.
Now, just to add one thing, anything can be contested. It doesn't mean you're going to win. So I can tell you, in my experience, the beneficiary under a life policy, that's who's going to receive the benefits. As Jordan says, under retirement annuity, whoever you appoint, they will always assess. And so often, the beneficiaries appear from all different parts. Second wives and children that are being supported, and even older adults that are being supported by parents. So understand that. Felicity in Johannesburg says, many of us women earn a lot less than our male counterparts who are doing the same job. Yet we need to save more due to our life expectancy. How can women who are single at retirement ever have enough?
It's a very tricky one, and I completely understand the concern here. Funding your retirement is I think, a tricky thing for anyone.
And that's actually where your marriage regime is so important.
Exactly. But I think, and she's mentioned there, and I've seen a lot of studies in terms of gender pay disparities, and I think the trend is moving in the right direction there, but, I think we can't control what's going on in broader society, and hopefully we continue to move in the right direction in terms of gender pay gaps and things like that. The difficult part, I suppose, here is to focus on what you can control, based on the conditions that you find yourself in, and it may be that you need to look at trying to contribute a higher percentage of your income to retirement funds, because that's what I try and fixate on with clients is, okay, what can we control? What is within your reach, and what can we manage? Because we can't necessarily change broader societal norms, and like I said, hopefully that continues to move in the right direction, but to focus on what you can control. If that does mean having to work slightly longer before retirement. We talked about the twofold impact of that earlier on. And I think it's important to note that that can work for you as well. So if you are working longer, your retirement funds are likely much bigger by the time you do retire, and they're now having to support you for a lesser period.
And I think, Jordan, that's where a discussion needs to be held at the family level. If both parties are working and one person's going to stop work, if they're purely taking time off, but if they're going to stop work, the wife has to say to the husband, I've been contributing to these funds whilst I'm off. I need you to contribute to these funds to keep my contributions going on so that today so many people can't live on one retirement salary. They need both spouse retirement salary. So I think that's important. But I want to get on to this last email today from Paul in Durban. He says, how do healthcare costs and long-term care need impact on retirement planning and investing? I'll start with that. I just want to explain to you that healthcare for me in retirement and planning for retirement comes in 4 stages. One is disability insurance, either capital or income. The second is what we call dreaded disease. The third is your medical aid, and the fourth is gap cover. You need to understand that if inflation running at 9%, in 8 years' time, your medical aid cost to your medical aid will be double. And in a further 8 years, it'll be double again. So if you're age 50 and you're going to retire at age 65 and you're in a comprehensive plan at the moment, let's say you're paying 15,000, 16,000 Rand, in 16 years' time when you retire, you will be paying in the order of 60 to 64,000. How are you going to fund for that? You need to actually understand that you need to talk to a healthcare expert to have a look at what plan should be on. But in retirement planning, it's virtually impossible because we talk about retirement costs coming down. We talk about education costs, debt costs, bond costs. We talk about you're not going to be saving and drawing from a retirement annuity. And all those costs you can contain with a lower rate of inflation, but not when it comes to medical aid.
I think that's spot on, Bryan. I think approaching retirement, and we talked about it extensively already, the planning leading up to that point. And I think the focus often falls on, okay, after retirement, as you've said, these expenses are falling away and the financial picture on the expense side often looks a bit better. Whether it's a need or a must, generally that comes down. But I think what often isn't focused or talked about enough is, and you've talked about that 9% figure, which I think is going to be very close to the actual figure, whatever it might be with your chosen medical aid. But the medical expenses and the rate of increase in those costs, while your other expenditure might fall when you go into retirement, those expenses start increasing and they don't tend to slow down. And you're trying to avoid a scenario where you've paid for your entire life for a critical illness policy or a life policy, and now you're forced into the position where, all of these things together, you talk about gap cover, may not be affordable, and then it's a difficult situation of, well, something's got to give. So I think there's got to be adequate planning well ahead of time, not just for retirement expenditure, but the medical component of that, which is going to consume more and more of your expenditure.
Because we do know that as people get older, their need for healthcare cover is greater.
Exactly.
Younger people, and there's also a problem which I deal in healthcare, cross-pollination or the cross-subsidization of contribution. Younger people are not taking that. But unfortunately, we've come to the end of a program. Jordan, thank you for joining me this evening. It's important to note that our program tonight is to provide information and should not be construed as advice. Next week's program, we're dealing with investments, and if you need to get hold of me, my details will appear on the screen. I'd like to thank you for watching, and good night.